Welcome back to Brands Hatch. It's an absolutely freezing afternoon here. The sun might be out, but it's a very lazy wind. And as you just saw from that quick clip there, race one was particularly close. By the end of the race, you could have thrown a blanket over the bulk of the field. Alain Menu got away just a little bit. We're just waiting for him and the rest of the cars actually to come round and form up on the grid. Just like race one, where Menu had pole position, he managed to lead from start to finish. Well, he's got pole position again. And alongside him for the second race will be Rickard Rydell. Once again on the front row of the grid. Rydell's really going to have to concentrate, though, because as we saw from the first race, he started to struggle for pace. Early on, he was all right. The tyres fell away. Much more critical in this race, of course, because it's a pit stop race. It'll be a longer race than before. That's harder on the tyres. And on top of that, they're going to have to come in and change two of them. That really might play into the hands of Van Muller. Muller in the Vauxhall, as we saw in last race, really started to close on Alain Menu in the closing stages. By the end of it, he was only 0.8 of a second behind Alain Menu with 1 lap to go. Now, with a longer race and a pit stop strategy as well, he could be in with a hunt. While we wait for the cars to come around, Mark Fogarty has been having a look at the shape of this year's championship.
Is this the future of the BTCC? Super production cars like this Honda Accord, cars not very far removed at all from what you and I drive on the road, could take over next year from the current breed of purpose-built tin-top racing saloons. Now, the reason this is such a big debate is because the BTCC is about to come under new management. But why change it all?
You've got to understand that TOCA was set up originally by a small group of us for the teams to make sure the stability in the championship for both the teams, for the events, for the spectators as well. And with the MSA decided that they wanted the circuits to run the championship in 2 years' time, decision that was theirs, and they are perfectly free to make that decision. This next 2-year period was going to be very difficult, and the obvious thing was to come to an arrangement to do a sensible handover at an early stage, just to look after and preserve the championship.
I think the championship's very secure. It's got a good long-term contract with BMP for the next 10 or now 12 years to run the championship. They're going to invest a lot of time, money and effort into ensuring this championship's the best of its type in the world, and I hope they're successful at doing that.
What hasn't been decided, though, are the technical regulations for next year. Super production is the leading candidate, but not everyone agrees that's the way the rules should be heading.
I have to admit that I'm not overly enthusiastic about the super production rules that people are suggesting. I don't believe it's the standard that the British Touring Car Championship has become accustomed to, the high level of competitiveness, and I don't think the regulations actually lend themselves. They're homologation regulations, which means they're based fundamentally on production cars, which means a manufacturer going out there, produce a special car, homologation special, is going to dominate. We had that in the past with cars 10 years ago, and that was the reason why we set up the formula originally 8 years back with TOCA.
Well, from the driver's point of view, I think really we all want something a little bit more spectacular, you know, a little bit something that we can give the crowds and, you know, give ourselves something a little bit more enjoyment driving. I mean, the 2-litre touring cars is a great formula. Unfortunately, it's become a little bit too expensive for its market value. So time's to change. But driving point of view, it'd be nice to see something rear-wheel drive, so we can really show you know, our flair and you know, our spectacle.
This debate has certainly stirred up plenty of interest, but it's going to be at least another couple of months before the future of the British Touring Car Championship is finally decided.
Okay, well, the cars are just starting to leave the pit lane now to make their way around to form up on the grid, Waddy, and I'll tell you what, I hope it's warmer up in the commentary booth than it is down here. Absolutely freezing in this wind, and James Thompson in particular is a guy that's got a lot of work for himself to do in race 2.
Thanks, Charlie. Well, it is a bit warmer up in the commentary booth, but it'll be pretty warm on those touring cars very shortly. 28 laps of the 2.62 Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. And of course the mandatory pit stops for the Super Tourers, those are the cars we're looking at now. And those further back, the Class B cars, no pit stops, so they go through the 28 laps on that one set of tyres. Just watching as they come up on this lap before they take their place on the grid. Alain Menu and Rickard Rydell again dominant. in the qualifying for this feature race. There you could see Alan Morrison in the leading Class B. That's the Peugeot 306 GTI, and it really just walked away from the remaining Class B cars. Morrison won very comfortably indeed, and pretty much the same prospect in view for the feature race. So looking down at the field as they come down, this is the quickest part of the track. They drop down, Pilgrim's drop, 6th gear, 220 kilometers per hour, and just a touch on the brakes, down into 5th gear, and then climbing up hills through Hawthorne Bend, one of the most exciting corners. And we saw James Thompson just get a little bit there, the marks, in fact, on the track where he came back on. And I think he was helped a little bit from behind. Cars, of course, not allowed this year to use tire warmers, and that's why we're seeing them weaving around to try and put some energy into the sidewall to help build up as much temperature as possible, because in the early laps it is so easy, and in particular in the rear of the car, and the car is a little bit unloaded, and cool tires for the back end to get away. Jason Plater, one of the stars, he was very impressive at this point of the circuit. That's where he began the process of getting past Matt Neal. He started it here, he worked it all the way down as they come down into clearways, went the long way around initially, but then cut back behind Matt Neal in the Nissan and took that position away. Jason Plater went on to finish 4th in the sprint race. Pit stop window this afternoon, it's between 15% and 70% of race distance. That's lap 4 to lap 19. The pit stops must be made in that pit stop window.
Well, we've just heard from the pits from where I've just sprinted. As you can hear, that Tarquini might actually have to start in the pit lane because he's done an engine change.
Well, that's going to be tough for Gabriele Tarquini, a man who knows his way around this circuit very well indeed, and a very popular attorney to British Touring Car Championship racing. In the third of the 3 Honda Accords, a car that really hasn't fulfilled the expectation and promise that everybody anticipated over the winter time. And in fact, currently, from my spies around the Honda camp, it's Tom Christensen of the 3 drivers who's currently the one that is maybe seen in the most favorable light. And there's a little bit of internal company politicking going on as well, which is something, of course, that can only detract from the team's performance in a very, very competitive 3-manufacturer race. And don't forget Matt Neal either, and that independent Nissan. That's a very quick car, and a car more than capable of beating any of these 3 factory teams here this afternoon.
Now, you'd have to think that James Thompson really had the best chance with all of the work that they've done on the season last year. In the meantime, though, Mark Fogarty, back to Thompson in a minute. Mark Fogarty's down on the pit lane, and he's got Alain Menu with him.
In fact, I'm down on the front of the grid. Alain Menu again on pole position. Alain, it was a runaway in the first race. Set for a repeat?
It would be nice to do it again. I mean, that first race was a great result for Ford and for the team, for Ford Drive. I mean, it's looking good. I'm on pole position again, so we'll see. You know, we'll see after the first lap where we are, and then with the pit stop, anything could happen. But I think I've got a good chance to do well again. Yeah.
Pit stop strategy. How important is that going to be in this event?
Well, I'm not sure, really. I mean, it's the first one of the year. We haven't really practiced that so far, so I'm not too sure. I think we don't know yet exactly when we are going to stop. It depends how the race goes and where I am on the track, actually.
And the guys behind you, who are the danger men?
I think the same as in the first race. I mean, it's my 2 teammates and Müller.
Okay, Alain Menu on pole once again.
Now, and that's not good news for Van Muller. Waddy, they're doing some very last-minute work. They've got the front wheel off there. He's on the 2nd row of the grid, and he was the man, remember, that challenged Alain Menu so closely. Mechanics looking around there. I don't know whether he sensed a wheel bearing problem or something like that in the warm-up lap. He'd feel a fair bit on a lap this long.
Well, they're certainly getting stuck in at something around the caliper on the disc or part of the suspension. And a stressful moment for any driver on the grid just before this second race this afternoon is going to take place, but looks like they've got it under control, and the wheel's going back on.
The driver's trying to put the wheel back on while the national anthem is on. Still working on Muller's car, but about to come off the Ajax. Rickard Rydell is the other fancied Ford runner on the front row, and Mark Fogarty's with him.
The car's just gone down off the jacks and nearly landed on my foot. Rickard, a strong third in the opening event. What's your prognosis for this one?
We'll hope to do the same, to stay ahead. I mean, we've qualified on the front, both Fords, so I'll hope to keep up there with Alan.
Ivan Muller got past you in the first event. He's obviously very quick. You'll be keeping your eye out for him.
We've changed the setup, so hopefully it'll be better this time.
Okay, Rickard Rydell, thank you very much.
Poor old Fergs, very difficult interviewing drivers inside a car, like trying to negotiate with a hostage down a well, isn't it? You can just hear a noise coming muffled from the darkness. There he is, Anthony Reid, just getting himself composed. Gee, they sit low in these cars now, don't they, John Watson? They've engineered them so far past being normal road cars.
I think the nearest thing to a road car is the badge on the front that says Ford. It is a pure racing car. It's got a very sophisticated tubular framework inside the car, which really in effect is a proper tubular frame chassis. It's there for the protection of the driver, of course. That's its primary form, but it adds significantly to the stiffness of the car.
Well, there's Gabriele Tarquini. He's in the pit lane. Good news is he is going to start. He'll join the field as it files off on the green flag lap and park himself on the back of the grid. So work to do at the start for him, but at least he's with us.
Yes, he's going to have to make his way through the 3 Class B cars. That's Morrison, Mark Lemmer and James Kay. That shouldn't be too much of a problem, but he'll want to get through basically before he gets into Druids. He doesn't want to lose contact with the remaining Super Tourers and then have to really work hard and maybe push on the tyres that little bit too hard too soon. The whole strategy of this race really is going to be making the right time to come in and more importantly getting back out when the track is clear at the point you want to re-enter, not getting caught behind a slower car that you might have difficulty in passing.
As they move away now on the green flag lap, this takes them out and around the circuit. It really is going to be a terrible amount of work for the pit crews in managing 3 cars out there and trying to synchronize their pit stops. Hard enough with 2.
It is difficult, and I think teams are going to find out just how difficult it is, because it may not always be the optimum time and they've got to bring one of their 3 drivers in, but clearly whichever of the 3 of the drivers is doing the best or is best positioned is going to get the best shout. So I think it adds to the competition within the team to ensure that you are that particular person and not sort of the runt of the litter.
Well, the man that's going to be watching all of that action, all of those pit stops, is our eyes and ears, if you like, of the pit lane, Mark Fogarty.
Yes, Charlie, down here in the pit lane, a big strategy battle looming in this race. I've been talking to many of the teams, and the big tactic down here is tyres. Now, some of the teams, in fact, if you believe some people, most of the teams are going for a harder compound tyre. The 2 compounds, they have a softer one and a harder one. The theory being that if you can stay out as long as possible and get an advantage and then pit as late as possible, you'll be able to make some gain in the pits. But there are other cars, most notably, I think, nobody's saying, but I think Matt Neal and the Nissan, which is supposed to be kind on its tyres, are banking on running softer compound tyres, getting an early break, and then coming in and pitting and trying to make up some advantage there. So everyone is playing it very, very close to their chest on what sort of tyres they're running. I do know for a fact, though, that James Thompson and Tom Christensen in the Hondas, they've gone for the hard compound tyres. They would actually like the ambient track temperature to be a bit warmer than it is, but they're still banking on the fact that the harder tyres will enable them to stay out on the track longer through that pit stop window of lap 5, lap 20, and they can gain some ground there. So it'll be very interesting to watch who has got the tactic right and who can make some gains in the pit lane, because a lot like Formula 1, you can actually win a race if you do the job correctly in the pit lane.
You just saw Alain Menu coming through on the first of his flying laps. They don't have tyre warmers anymore in this series, so the cars aren't allowed to start with hot tyres. So they have 2 laps now in which to fly around and get heat into them. Very important. And here is our grid. As you can see, Alain Menu, our pole sitter, Rickard Rydell, as with race 1 on the front row of the grid. Muller menacing right behind. Anthony Reid in the 3rd of the Fords alongside him. Tom Christensen further up this time. He'll be really hot. That's a good spot for him. And Matt Neal, the independent, alongside him. James Thompson in 7th, Jason Plato in 8th. They'll be fun to watch together. Tarquini 9th and Rademacher in 10th position in the 3rd of the Vauxhalls, and Colin Blair in 11th place. Then we have Morrison, Lemmer and Kay both in Hondas in the Class B cars, and Norden, who is struggling to get back out on the grid and won't be starting in this race after all because of some last-minute mechanical problems he had. A big shunt in practice yesterday, and the car was not really up to scratch this morning.
No, he retired from the sprint race, and it's a very vertical learning curve for young Mark Norton. So it's you're looking forward to Easter Monday up at Donington Park, I think.
They're working really hard, Waddy, on those tyres, aren't they? Really trying to get some heat in them. I know I complain a lot, but it is really cold down there, even though the sun's out, so I'm sure the track temperature's not that high either.
No, it's not, and with the compounds, they've got a new compound. The harder of the two compounds is a new one to the teams. They're not really totally yet familiar with its performance over a duration of a longer run than, say, 14 laps, which is what the sprint race is. This is, of course, 28 laps, so they just want to get the maximum tyre temperature possible. And going back to the rear tyres in particular, Charlie, if you've got cold rear tyres and hot front tyres, that's a recipe for a big disaster.
Yeah, perhaps a little bit less critical for the last couple of cars we just saw coming over there. They're the Class B cars, have two classes of runners in this field. The Super Tourers at the front, and Class B, which are less modified. They don't have to make pit stops as well, which makes their life just that bit easier.
Yes, it will do, and they again are on a different tyre to the cars you're looking here at the front of the grid. Their tyre is even harder, so for them these early laps really will be crucial. If you think back to qualifying, Mark Lemmer on his out lap on the single lap qualifying spun literally as he came into the start-finish straight, so you know it's easy to do.
Interesting point Fogues was making about the Nissan being easier on its tyres. Do you think that's so? That should be a big help for Matt if that's the case.
I think it is. It gives them an option in terms of whether they use the softer of the two tyres on the right-hand side, but because Brands has got quite a number of left-hand corners and quite critical ones as well, it's marginal as to whether that tyre will live.
Well, all will be revealed any moment because the cars are now on the grid. Alain Menu on the left of your screen, Rydell to the right, and the two yellow Fords. Behind them in the red Vauxhall is Muller, and then the next one behind them is Reed. The lights on the left-hand side of the screen, when they go red as they have now, the revs will rise, as indeed will mine. Ready for a start, green, and they're away. Menu on the left pulling away well. Rydell doesn't look too bad either. There's a little bit of shenanigans in the middle of the field, and Muller's moved around the outside. Right around the outside of Rickard Rydell to see if he can sneak past in Paddock Hill Bend. That's brave stuff. It didn't quite work, but he's right with him, and Reed is right behind the pair of them. Everybody else cleanly away. Nose to tail around Druids for the first time. Matt Neal there in the red independent Nissan on the outside. I hope he doesn't get shuffled off the edge of the track. There are the independent runners. Flying start once again from Menu. Then it's Rydell, then Muller right behind them. That's Tarquini bringing up the rear of the field as they pull into Druids for the first time.
And once again, Matt Neal, covered by Hondas and Vauxhall, dives down the inside into that south bank. But Alain Menu, another perfect start. Rickard Rydell, yet again under pressure.
This is absolute copybook stuff from race one. Rydell in second place, holding up the rest of the field. That's Rydell, Muller, Reed in the third of the yellow Fords. Having a look down the inside, Tom Christensen in the first of the Hondas right behind them. Moving up, that was Hawthorne's corner. Now we're into Westfield. Very fast part of the track as well. They're nudging 100 miles an hour, even with cold tyres. Down into the dipper and up to Dingle Dell for the first time.
Yes, he's watching through this Muller there he is, spectacular, can you believe him?
Absolutely takes no prisoners. Up and over Dingle Dell for the first time, already opening up a gap on the Class B runners.
And look at Menu just as he comes down now into clearways, just pulling away with the same degree of ease that he did in the first race earlier this afternoon. Rickard Rydell second, but just dropping back. Muller maintaining the kind of gap that he had, but Anthony Reid really showing strongly for the first time here this afternoon in the third of the Mondeos. And then Tom Christensen, followed by Matt Neal, James Thompson, Vincent Rademacher, Jason Pato and Gabriele Tarquini.
There they are, counting them down. Menu, Rydell, Muller, that's the top three. Christensen a much better show in fifth place. Anthony Reid pressing on hard as well. Matt Neal, the independent runner, inside the top six. He had a rough race first time around, had some contact apparently with James Thompson early on. That made his life difficult. Now he's in much better shape. Tarquini once again, he's caught up to the tail end of those works cars, so he's worked his way through the field. He is the last of the official works entries, but he's still in good shape. There's Christensen, followed by Matt Neal, then James Thompson. That was Tarquini the last. This is Colin Blair, the second of the independent runners, also in a Nissan, but he should be in a little bit of better position than that, I think, Waddy.
Yeah, he should be with a car like that. But I think, you know, he's just learning, and it'll take him the season to get an idea of how these things really do operate.
On board with Jason Plato now. Ahead of us is his teammate Vincent Rademacher. Now this is down the dip up towards Dingle Dell. This is that amazing corner that you can't see over the top of until you get there. Even with our camera angle, poised so high. Down into Sterling's corner. This is a left-hander, which leads us back down onto the pit straight again. Plato behind his teammate. This is better news for his teammate Rademacher, who pretty much trailed the group all the way around into clearways now. They've dropped a couple of gears, now putting on the power. They really hit clearways much faster on this long circuit, John.
Yeah, it's a really wonderful corner, clearways. You really have to attack it. The car gets light over the crest, and Jason Plato used that opportunity to pass Matt Neal in the earlier race. Now look at the face of the concentration.
Up towards Druid's corner now. Very tight second gear corner. Rademacher still holding us out, trying to find a way around. That was Tarquini right behind James Thompson. Menu, then Rydell, then Muller, then Reed still in touch, then Christensen, then Matt Neal right behind them, then Thompson, Rademacher, Plato, and Tarquini rounding out the top 10. Up and onto the long part of the circuit. This is the back end of the Grand Prix circuit. That's the fastest part of the track right there, just before they break for the big right-hander at Hawthorns, which they take in 5th gear, and they're still nudging 100 miles an hour plus through it. James Thompson just moving up there on the inside of Rademacher. Rademacher thinking about making a move, can't do it. Very close. That's Thompson, that's Rademacher, and that's Plato, his teammate, right behind them. That's as close as you want.
Yep, that's going to be as close as you want, and with Rademacher and Plato threatening the third of the Hondas, it's Thompson's got his work cut out this afternoon. He's not happy. Oh, and there somebody's off.
That's off in a big way. That was Christensen, straight on at Sterling's. I don't know whether he was assisted or not.
There's 2 black marks there, Charlie. You can see he's had a lock-up going in, whether somebody had shunted him or whether it was just a driver error, but there's 2 black marks indicating he just went straight in.
Very focusing moment for our cameraman. He was manfully there, didn't move back from the post. Rotten luck for Christensen, though, because he was making his best showing so far. Had a little bit of a difficult first race, but he was right up there and leading for Honda. 1 Honda down. Thompson now the lead Honda in 5th position. And Tarquini moves up to 8th. Menu meantime holds the lead. Rydell right behind him. And there's the gap. You can see it pretty closely. Muller is right behind them, and Reed very much a part of it. The entire thing, 1.5 seconds. Menu, Rydell, Ivan Muller in the Vauxhall, the lone Vauxhall up there. In that trio of trouble as they go up and onto the back part of the circuit again. Nothing in it in the horsepower stakes. They are as close as can be.
And what really confirms is this, how important qualifying is, because the cars are so equally matched. If you're not at the front of the grid and get away cleanly, and Anthony Reid struggled to get up to 4th place in the sprint race, but because he started on the 2nd row of the grid, he's able to get away with that leading bunch.
And that leading bunch is staying pretty much close together, much closer than they did last time around when Alain Menu was able to bolt into the distance. It's very early days yet, but there's Menu from Rydell still. There's Tom Christensen's Stratocar, and there's a second car in there as well. That looks very much like Matt Neal's Independent Nissan to me.
It does indeed. It looks as if the 2 of them have come together, and they were going into Sterling's Bend.
Well, that would explain it, so maybe not so much a driver error as the pair of them getting tangled up, but that is not good for either of them. Valuable points wasted. Matt Neal, as I was just saying, had a very difficult race 1. Apparently he'd had a coming together with James Thompson and knocked his suspension around a bit. Now we're going to have another look at this. This is the view from Matt Neal's car coming down the inside of Tom Christensen. Tom Christensen hasn't made the corner, neither has Matt. Both of them into the tyre wall. What's the verdict, Doctor?
Well, on that one there was no chance whatsoever. I just would like to see this view to see whether there was a problem for Matt. No, we don't quite get it, to see whether he literally had a problem. He had no option but to do what he did, but clearly took out Tom Christensen and down to Matt that one.
And here's the safety car out as well. Those cars are stranded obviously in a very tricky spot. 2 of them as well in the gravel trap, and we've seen other cars come to grief there. We mentioned a young fella by the name of Mark Norden earlier who's not starting in this race. That's largely because of a crash he had on that very corner in practice yesterday. So with that in mind, they must clear those cars out. I just hope they're not buried too deeply.
Well, one of the difficulties that they have here at Brands Hatch is in these gravel traps, you've got to put vehicles onto the circuit to enable those cars to be removed, and of course that means you've got to have the safety car out, and this could take maybe 2 or 3, maybe even more laps, plus whatever gravel might have been kicked back onto the track. It's got to be put back to normal, and also the tyre wall, so tyres going everywhere, they've got to be stacked back in their correct form.
Well, I hope they've got enough fuel on board, because to remember, these opening laps under the safety car don't count against the race distance. The first 5 do not count as race laps, so we're not going to have a shortened race as a result of this, unless, of course, it runs past the 5 laps. Frustrating for Alain Menu. Great news for Richard Rydell, who stays in touch. Ivan Muller, I guess he gets another lash at it. That's Muller there in the red Vauxhall, then Reed in the third of the yellow Fords. And then James Thompson now the highest placed. There's Reed in the third Ford, then Thompson, and then Rademacher, Jason Plato, and then Gabriele Tarquini in the last of the Hondas in 8th place. And that closes the field right up again. It did not look like, if Matt was actually having a go at passing there, that wasn't a pass that was on.
No, it wasn't on, and that's why I feel I give Matt the benefit of the doubt until we can find out later on. In fact, was there a problem with like a throttle sticking or something? You could see clearly on the grass on the inside and on part of the racetrack where he had the front wheels locked up, and he just still went in at a pretty high rate of knots, and that indicates to me something mechanically with the car, and really poor Tom Christensen found himself a passenger in Matt's accident and taking 2 cars out of the race.
Yeah, well, folks might be able to throw a little bit of light on this. Apparently Tom Christensen is not a happy camper.
I'm afraid the finger of blame seems to be pointing at Matt Neal. Tom Christensen has just radioed into the Honda team management, and he says quite clearly that Matt Neal had him off. So Matt Neal presumably having a lunge there. It didn't quite work, and he just punted Tom Christensen off. That's Christensen's story. That's the word he's sending back to the pit lane here, the Honda team management. They're not very happy at all.
Yeah, I'll bet they're not. It did look like a rush of blood, didn't it?
It certainly had a fit of the head staggers about it, but again, I think until we get to speak to Matt Neal and get his version of events, clearly Tom Christensen is rightly upset about it. It looked as if he was attacked in a way which was never going to come off, and that would be his position, but we need to hear from the other side of the show and find out if it was just simply a rush of blood to the head or was something beyond Matt Neal's control. And I'm going at this present time on the second of those two, that he had a problem, and that's what led to the 2 cars being taken out.
So, this is James Thompson. You can hear him just trying to keep the revs up. He'll actually hang back a bit, won't he, and then accelerate and stand on the brakes again as one of the ways to keep his tyres hot, because that's a real issue for these fellas, is they're running such slow laps now.
Yes, they're running behind a basic standard Ford Mondeo, which is probably on its door handles, but these guys are just running around at about 2/10 of the capability. And any way you can find to keep temperature up, principally in the tyres, doing it through brakes is one way you can heat the brakes up. That heat transfer goes into the wheels.
Jason Plato just having a look at all the work to do in front of him, and there are 6 other cars between him and being in P1, so he's got plenty to do.
But I reckon right now Jason, driving around but in the safety car line, is thinking about one thing and one thing only, and that is, can he get back to Oxford in his own little private aircraft before it gets dark? With a PPL, he may not be able to make it if the night descends too soon.
Well, that might be a huge favour for him. It's so windy out there. I wouldn't want to be piloting with Jason. Love him as we do. There's Ricard Riedel, always a picture of concentration, and even under safety car laps, that's no different.
Interesting looking at Ricard there. The balaclava that he wears under his helmet, he's got it sort of loosely hanging outside his overalls. Now, normally racing drivers should have all those bits of safety equipment neatly tucked away, but Ricard, well, doesn't seem too concerned.
Yeah, and in fact, he hasn't actually got his. Don't want to get him into trouble with the stewards, but it doesn't look as though he's got the top of his race suit done up either. Now, there's Matt Neal. He hasn't even got his helmet on. That's because he's being towed, I guess, back to the pits. I can't hear any engine.
No, I think that's Matt just getting a tow out of the gravel trap, and I would think the front of the car is fairly severely damaged. I'm surprised he even got steering control.
Well, he's so big, he's got a lot of leverage. That is very, very unfortunate. Leaving blame aside, that is very, very unfortunate for Matt. He needs, there's Tom Christensen's car, the car he came together with. Not too severe, but obviously not usable in this race, Watty.
Not at all. That car, unfortunately, will go back into the garage. Its day is done. But what's really unfortunate also is that we've got 2 of the most competitive cars in this race out at a relatively early stage on lap 4. And I mean, Matt Neal, the leading independent in his Nissan Primera, capable of winning any of these rounds so far this year.
Yeah, well, actually, another car we have out of the season very early as well is, in fact, the safety car, because the safety car is normally a Jaguar, you might remember, but the series boss, Alan Gow, was driving back to the circuit last night, and someone ran into the back of the Jaguar, smashed it up and knocked the rear bumper off, which is why we have a very, very handsome Ford Mondeo in its place acting as safety car. So even the safety car can find itself in a gravel trap from time to time.
Well, I wonder what Alan was doing getting tailgated on his way home last night.
Matt Neal coming back into the pits. Well, it's still rolling. What are you?
And considering the impact that we saw on the onboard shot, the car looks relatively undamaged, and I mean, Matt's driven it back in, and the wheels all look to be pointing in sort of reasonably straight ahead direction.
He's not in a hurry, though.
No, that sort of does signal an element of guilt about the situation. Clearly there was nothing wrong mechanically if he was able to drive the car back, so it may have been that rush of blood to the head that uncharacteristically we saw from Matt Neal.
Well, the drivers can tell that pretty soon Christensen's car will be removed as well, because they're starting to weave much more frantically as they come back down the pit straight, trying to get heat in the tyres. It's the aerial view from Van Muller, with two cars ahead of him. Ricard Riedel immediately ahead, and our race one winner, Alain Menu, just in front of them. Down to bottom bend. This too is a re-engineered corner. It was changed only for last year. Now Matt Neal is down in the pit lane with Mark Fogarty to explain things.
Matt Neal, what's your side of the story? What happened there? We've heard back from Tom Christensen, the Honda pit. He blames you.
Well, they would do, wouldn't they? That's two Hondas in two races I've had skirmishes with. He basically lost it going through Dingle Dell, and I got a run on him, went for the inside, and he just dived to the inside to try and defend, and drove me off the road as I was going down the inside. Put me on my inside wheels onto the grass, and I locked up, and the both of us went off, instead of just conceding the corner.
Just being belligerent. So as far as you're concerned, you're blameless?
You know, it's a racing incident. I mean, James took me out in the first race and bent our rear suspension. I don't go blarting, you know, to the cameras or anything about that, but I think that's more of an even situation than ever. Never mind the first race incident. I just think, you know, he's obviously a driver of great reputation, and he doesn't like to see that dented by anybody.
You must be gutted, because the car's obviously got the performance, but you've nothing to show for it, really.
That's what really grieves me, because, you know, with the problems in the first race with the bent suspension and the setup we got it, and the tyres, just everything felt mega for that race. You know, we held the start, and it really, really felt good. I'm really sad for the team because of all the work they've put in and everything, and I'm really upset for them.
There you go, an annoyed and disappointed Matt Neal.
Okay, well, the safety car lights are off, and the safety car is about to depart back into the pit lane, which gives us a rolling restart. Coming down across the line, Alain Menu has got on the gas well and is across the line cleanly. Menu from Riedel, Muller right behind him, then Anthony Reid, and already some action in the midfield. Two of the Vauxhalls at play, and Gabriele Tarquini in the last of the red Hondas trying to capitalise. That was Mark Lemmer in the Class B Honda Integra, getting very, very sideways going down through Paddock Hill. I think he caught it, but very scary.
He did catch it, but again, that's just an illustration of cold tyres. What happens on a front-wheel drive car, when the tyres are cold, it's the back that gets away from you, and Lemmer did a great job keeping the car on track at Paddock.
He had a very big spin doing exactly the same thing during his qualifying lap. Now here's Alan Morrison moving up on the inside of Lemmer to try to get past, as Alain Menu heads the field out of Surtees and back up the hill onto the back straight for the first time. Class A cars clearing away through Hawthorns, back up to full speed. Trying to press home an advantage. Instantly, Alain Menu just seems to have a tiny edge.
Yeah, it's one of those skills some drivers have got and others don't, and that's the ability, when you've had a safety car rule, to go when the track is green, go hard, not take that half lap or more just to get back up to speed, to do it from the minute you cross the line, and that's something Menu is proving here this afternoon.
Interesting account of events from Matt Neal, that Christensen actually ran wide and forced him into that position.
I think that when Matt sees the pictures, he might revise his view. I was generous to him, thinking it was mechanical. There really was no way, whatever Christensen had done, there was no way that Matt was going to get down the inside without having a collision or certainly going off track.
Well, it's going to be a colourful and passionate series, Watty, of that there is no doubt, as we cross the line again. Alain Menu, Riedel running wide there. That's just what Muller needs, a bit of a sniff of a lead as they go up into Druids again, all the way through the box into second gear. Menu, Riedel, Muller, and they are nose to tail. Reid running it a little bit wide, then James Thompson in the first of those red and white Hondas. Rademacher then in the second of the Vauxhalls, just there on screen. Plato right behind him. And then last of the works cars, Gabriele Tarquini, still pretty much in touch. And then Colin Blair in the white Nissan, the remaining independent Nissan. And
basically doing a better job in this race than he did in the first one. He's certainly staying in touch, more so after one lap than he did, and it's just a learning experience. But just think about Matt Neal, Charlie. I reckon that all these three factory teams have got 3 cars per team. They're ganging up on poor Matt Neal. He's really out there fighting on his own against very, very tough opposition.
There's Van Muller ganging up on the back of Rickard Riedel as well, Waddy. He looked as though he was going to have a move around the outside. Riedel coming under big pressure. Oh, and a great big leap there from Van Muller. This looks like a qualifying lap. Anthony Reid says, if you want to play hopscotch, so will I. Leaps across the top of Dingeldale with him. They are on a charge.
Yeah, same old story, though. Muller's going to have to find a way around Rickard Riedel very quickly indeed. It's not going to happen here, but watch him again as he gets out of clearways and looks towards paddock.
Yeah, it's a very different line, isn't it? He turns in a little bit tighter, holds a different line all the way through clearways. Then they are absolutely honking down across the start-finish line. As you said before, over 130. Muller having a look in. That's Jason Plater coming into the pits. That can't be a scheduled stop.
No, that's a problem for Plato, and I wonder, is it a puncture? In fact, I'm trying to look down, see if it's the right front. Is certainly they're having the car up. I can't believe they're making a pit stop this early. And this is lap 10 of a 32-lap race. It is a pit stop, lap 10, Michael. Well, that's Plato. You really fooled us here.
Well, unless he had a problem and he decided to capitalize on that, maybe sensing a puncture at the same time, get everything changed. But he certainly had a clear pit lane to do it, and now he has a very, very clear track. Got to put his head down, put in some serious, hard laps, and try to close the gap on this field. Alain Menu is opening the gap on the field because Rickard Riedel is exactly the same as he was in race 1, starting to bunch them up. Anthony Reid, the third of the yellow Fords there, having a look to the left-hand side of Van Muller, the lead of those red Vauxhalls, trying to find a way past. That's James Thompson in the red and white Honda behind them. He's really moved up onto this group as well. They're compressed once again by Rickard Riedel, and Menu is saying thank you very much as they all launch their way across Dingeldale once again.
Pit stop for Plato, out of sequence, but it may work to his advantage because he's going to run in clear air. He can run at his own speed, whereas the majority behind Riedel are all running at Riedel's speed and allowing Menu to gallop off into the distance. And maybe that was a very clever move by the Vauxhall team.
Either that or he just wants to fly home early, as you suggested. Rickard Riedel said after race 1, you can see he's coming under real pressure there. He said after race 1 he had to think about the setup on the car, do something else, because he's got the clear pace, but he can't hold it. Obviously, it hasn't worked.
I think what's happening is the way the tyres are being worked, the tyre loses the performance. That's because the setup, so he's just fine-tuning it. Look at that bumping.
Muller is really about to give him a shovel. That's as close as you can possibly get without hitting the other car. Now we're down into bottom bend again, holding back a little bit so he can keep the momentum up. Muller doesn't want to balk himself. We're on board with Muller now, just trying to work a way around Riedel. He's faking to the outside at Surtees, doesn't want to slow himself down, gets the run up onto the hill. He's in the tow, it's close enough.
Yeah, he got a good run, pulled up to the back of Rickard Riedel, but again, the speed of the V6 Ford just sufficient to draw it away again. Frustrating for Muller.
He's trying to be as close as he can without balking himself. That's a very, very quick corner, that Hawthorns. Looking to the inside, he'll have to pull back now for Westfields. Look at this, it's a double apex. Flip the curb there, and then they've got the second apex to deal with. And the safety car is out again, unbelievably. Alain Menu is going to wonder what he's got to do to get a lead and then keep it, because he just starts to prise one open again like a can opener. Safety car comes out, and it's all over.
Well, we've got to see what the reason for the safety car for the second time is. It may just simply be debris on the track from those incidents.
Well, here's the explanation, Watty. And that is Alan Morrison. Alan Morrison,
oh my
having
goodness,
a very big off. That's just around from Stirling cornering, and he looked to be losing it.
I was just sitting with him half an hour ago talking about how easy it was going to be for him in this feature race. Alan just loses at the back end again with these front-wheel drive Tourers. Spun, hit the back tire wall, and up she went.
Well, he looked as though he'd been dicing with Mark Lemmer into that corner, Stirling corner, which I always thought to be one of the least eventful corners on the track, is proving to be anything but that. It looked as though he was dicing with Mark Lemmer as he went in. I don't know if that upset him in any way, and then just launched off.
Yeah, I mean, really, he ran so quickly ahead of the two Hondas in the first race, and then he was running behind them and clearly trying to find a way past. Stirling's Bend is not a place to try and pass in reality. You use it as a building block for somewhere else around the circuit.
It was very, very big impact. He was quite lucky that car didn't go completely over.
Well, it was a pretty immaculate little Peugeot 306 GTI half an hour ago. It's now a little bit muddied and dented, as much as Alan's pride will also suffer the same.
Well, all the favourites are going out the window. This is not working to strategy at all. Morrison was not going as strongly as he had in race one. He was pretty, I guess because the field has been bunched up by the safety car before, he found himself in the thick of it, dicing with the other two Class B Hondas of Mark Lemmer and James Kay. He was much more involved in a scrap with those cars than he was in race one, where he was able to clear away.
He certainly managed to do that, and that just shows you how competitive these cars are, be it Super Tourers that we were looking at now, or the new Class B class that's been introduced this year. If you don't get away and you get caught behind other competitive cars, even though you could run quicker than them, well, it just shows how difficult it is.
Sorry, John, this is Stirling Corner where it just happened. You can see so many skid marks on that corner from the Matt Neal Christensen incident. There is the wounded Peugeot parked over on the infield. I thought he caught it for a moment.
It looked like it. I mean, the back stepped out, but once he got onto the grass, of course, the heavy overnight rain here at Brands Hatch, the grass is absolutely sodden, so there was no grip whatsoever.
Well, here comes Ivan Muller into the pits. I guess that makes good sense. Get some pit lane. Get some pit work done. They don't... This isn't tidy, John.
No, this is not a wheel. I don't factor they can't do it under a yellow safety car situation. This is a mechanical problem.
Well, he had problems with the front left, didn't he, on the pit lane before?
It looks like the front splitter on the bodywork has actually got knocked back and is probably touching against the wheel tire, or certainly something just ahead of the brake disc. We can see the guys are diving into it.
Well, this is the time to fix that problem. Engine off, not a good sign.
Right, put Tark through there.
And that's a great shame. Muller certainly was going to give us plenty of action.
Scott, are you ready with that wheel? Yeah.
Race under pressure, boys. Whatever it is, they fixed it. Front wheel back on again. My guess is that's separate from the problem they were having on the grid before the race. There's Muller trying to look calm.
Well, what he wants to do, get out as quickly as possible to make sure he gets back on track before the line of other cars come past. I think he's going to do that fairly comfortably. He'll now have to go all the way around to catch up to the end of the train of cars, and he's meant to do it at a low speed because the car and circuit is under the safety car. He's not meant to go at racing speeds, but no one's told Ivan that.
Yeah, right. I can see that. I'm sure he's just cruising around as calmly as you like, Governor. Lights are off on the safety car. That means the safety car will pit and the race will resume on this lap. We have a trio of Fords. Ford 1, 2 and 3. I don't know the last time, if ever, I've said that. This is Stirling Corner, the offending corner, where there have been so many problems. Morrison's car over to the left. It's obviously safe enough to leave there. Everyone's trying to get heat into their tyres quickly because they're coming down into Clearways Corner, and after this corner the race will start. Safety car pulls in, field held back, ready for a race start, and back on the gas and across the start-finish line. And it's Menu first, Rydell second, Reed third. That's Ford, Ford, Ford by my reckoning, followed by Thompson. Then it's Rademacher, Tarquini, and then Blair. And Rydell's made a strong start this time. Rydell on the right, Menu on the left, Reed behind them. Thompson the first of the Hondas. Rademacher the first of the Vauxhalls. There he is, and then Tarquini behind them, and then Plato, who's caught up from his early pit stop and is a part of that bunch again.
And
there's Jason Plato.
That may well work to Plato's advantage because he made that early pit stop. He's made the mandatory stop he has to do, and he will be out on track for the rest of the afternoon. If he can keep in touch with the lead car, which of course Alain Menu, he's going to be in Town City.
Yeah, actually that really will play to his advantage, won't it? Because they all still have to pit. If there are no more safety cars, they will all be peeling off and out of his way, one after the other. He's very much hoping that Mr. Blair peels out of his way as he ducks up the inside to get past him because he wants to stay in touch with the works cars. And he's had his nose cut off.
Well, I mean, Mr. Blair is a racer after all, and I think Jason Plato will be very unhappy about it, seeing the rest of the field just disappearing.
Yeah, that must be very, very, very frustrating for him, but fair dues, there's a race on. Although he's got his headlights ablaze now. Please get out of my way. You're new to the championship, and we'd really like you to shift aside, Colin, because my colleagues are moving out of the way. There's plenty of power in that Nissan because he's holding him at bay. Now Plato's looking down the inside at Clearways, still not doing it. All the field has abandoned ship. They've all gone into pit. That's our race leader, Alain Menu, in. That's James Thompson in the lead Honda in, and that is Rademacher, I think. in the remaining Vauxhall coming into pit at the same time. Menu first. 7.5 Waddy, not ideal. Side by side in the pit lane. How close do you want it? That's James Thompson in the Honda on the right-hand side. Menu, they've come out side by side. Fender bending action, and they're not on the track.
And remember the speed limit in the pit lane, 42 miles an hour, so very easy to overrun it. And of course that's a stop-go penalty for 10 seconds.
Especially easy to overrun it with that sort of a rush of blood. Desperate to get out and side by side. That was as close as you like down the pit lane. And James Thompson not getting the best of it. His car understeering there through Druitt's corner. Obviously not so good on the cold tyres. Alain Menu's car looked very crisp as he pulled straight out there. And James struggling a little bit for front-end grip. There was a huge difference between them.
Yeah, we're just interested to see how quickly Menu, again, on those cold, remember, he changed just 2 tyres. So quickly up to speed. James Thompson just taking that little bit of extra time to feel the grip that the car has got, or in his case, probably hasn't got.
Thompson staying in touch now. That's Alain Menu. There's our race leader now, Ricard Rydell. Second place is Anthony Reid, both in the Fords. And do they elect to stay out now? Rydell is pitting now, so Anthony Reid now moves across the line to take the lead in the third of the Fords, while Ford number 2, Ricard Rydell, moves into the pit. This is really working according to plan so far.
Well, certainly for Ford, everything's on course. They're taking it lap by lap for their 3 runners.
7.5 seconds was the time for Alain Menu in the first of the Fords.
And interesting, they're doing again the front wheels not side by side. Normally they do the left side, but because of the importance of 3 tough letter. Oh
dear me, that's James Thompson. James Thompson piled up backwards onto one of the tyre walls. That's a very, very big off indeed. The whole back of that car is missing. Look, you can just see the edge of the boot lid. Marshals are going up to the side of the car. James must still be in it. They're talking to him. That has just happened. Fire marshals there with an extinguisher. That is a very, very big off indeed.
Again, the problem with cold tyres on the back of a car is when you turn in, the car doesn't turn, it just spins on the top, and he's got in at high speed backwards. That looks, I was going to say, I thought it might have been out at Hawthorns, but it's clearly not. It's somewhere else around the circuit.
That's a Dingle-Dell, exit of Dingle-Dell, which is just before Stirling Corner. Dingle-Dell, where the cars become airborne as they go across. These cars are heading up to Dingle-Dell now, all of them, and they won't know perhaps on the other side of that what has happened to James Thompson. Yellow flags being waved. That was a very, very big off indeed. We noticed when James Thompson came out that Alain Menu seemed to have the better of the grip, John.
Yes, and we're looking at this now. Anthony Reid makes his pit stop. This is the race leader.
The cars are still racing. There's no sign of the safety car yet. Anthony Reid, the third of the Fords pitting. That's all fine from him. Anthony Reid's pit stop goes on. Well, that's Alain Menu's had the slightly the best of the 3 Ford stops, but they're all in the 7, so that's fair enough for all of those drivers, and that should see them pretty much resuming in the same position. Gabriele Tarquini, meantime, is moving up into the lead because he is the driver he's the Honda driver yet to pit. So he picks up. There's Anthony Reid. There's Alain Menu behind him. There's James Thompson. The doctor's with him. Now, he must be out of the car. I can't see him through there, John. He's just got out of the car. Just got out of the car, and the doctors are having a chat with him. He's fine. You can just see him above the flashing green doctor's lights. Well, scratching his head, but
yes, very shaken up. You can see that really that was a big, big rearward impact and whiplash, and although the compression he would have had. I mean, James will be taken to the medical centre immediately and checked out. He's been winded, really. I think that's probably what's affecting him most.
Good to see him moving, but yes, you can tell. He's been knocked around very hard. Now, here's on board with James Thompson. That was over the cross of Dingle-Dell. And bang into those tires.
Yeah, I mean, he got what we call a tank slapper. He turned in, the back end snapped one way, he put the lock on and then bit back the other way. And literally, the car from where it started that incident to where it hit the barrier is about maybe 50, 40 yards at most. And he would have certainly been doing close to 90, 100 miles an hour.
Terribly hard to get heat into those tyres. And that is a car, that is a point on the track where the car is so light. It makes such a difference, as you say. Just the spot for it to break traction. Now, here's another look at it. Over the top. There's your tank slapper, John.
Yeah, but you can see the distance. How, I mean, oh dear, I mean, that was in the camera position as well.
right into our camera position. Looked as though it broke the lens, actually. That was a very, very big impact.
Yes, it was, and we haven't seen an impact like that and damage to a car like that for quite some time. Now, of course, the back of these cars, there's not very much in the boot. The whole structure is based inside the cockpit of the car, but even your head can get rattled around and hit off some of those tubes, and that'll give him a headache tonight.
Well, James is nothing if not a hard charger. We saw in race 1 James Thompson have an enormous moment up in Hawthorne Corner. That's the 100-mile-an-hour corner at the back of the circuit. The car almost spun around and he managed to catch it, and that was unassisted. He said so himself later. He was just pushing on a little bit too hard and had, as you say, a tank slapper then. Yes,
he certainly is pushing very hard to try and keep up, but that part of the track where you've got those curves, the cars do get airborne. You get airborne, you haven't got much grip in the rear. You could see just what happened. The back hit the ground, literally lost grip, went one way, then came back, snapped back instantly the other way, and then he was into the tire wall and the barrier that's behind it. And that was a big impact, winded, bruised, and a sore head.
Well, we talked before race 1 about Dingle Dell and what an exciting corner it is, and the fact that the cars do become airborne. And they genuinely do have to make a landing the other side. That landing would be so much more difficult on your first lap out when you're feeling under pressure from Alain Menu, who is plainly getting more grip than you, and he's got tyres of different temperature, hasn't he? Because 2 of the tyres on that car were already race hot and 2 were not.
Yes, and I mean, James Thompson, who's more than capable of holding a slide in a touring car, but when you lose grip, that was just an instant loss of grip. But then it was when the bite came back. That's what happens. You get the snap into the opposite direction, and there's nobody's ever going to be able to control that. And once the tires lost grip completely, then there's just the momentum of the car, the kinetic energy takes over.
Well, it is incident aplenty. James Thompson, one Honda driver, is being driven back to the pits. A second Honda driver who was involved in a crash earlier with Matt Neal is in the pits with Mark Fogarty.
Tom Christensen, earlier we spoke to Matt Neal, and he blamed you for that incident early in the race. He said you pushed him wide, and he wrote it off as a racing incident. How do you see it?
Put it that way, he wrote it off as a racing incident. That's because he is to blame. I mean, I can't really see if the move was on at all. He just pushed me right off. He go on the grass and trying to pass me in a corner which is not his at all. I mean, I've heard a lot of things about him, but I'll say, polite Danish, I'm not very impressed with him. That's it. But that's that situation. I think what's worse now is what we saw my teammate go off. It looks like he's okay, but obviously he must be shaking a bit because Dingle Dell is a bloody quick corner. I think that is more important. Matt Neal is not very important in this case. I mean, I think the television, if you had it on, you will see everything what's happening. I mean, you can't pass somebody who's there.
So you just think he was trying to barge his way through where there wasn't room to get through?
Yeah, I mean, didn't you see the pictures?
Yeah, we're just looking at a replay now, and we can make our own judgments. But
yes.
Matt was quite adamant. Are you surprised that he's trying to put the blame on you?
Not really. After I talked to him after, because he didn't say anything. He just I had yesterday in my qualify, he destroyed my lap. I was coming with lights on, and he stayed in the line. So a few people have told me I'm the new boy here. I have heard there's a few people you have to be warned about, and he's one of them, and it proved right.
Okay, thanks, Tom. Well, there could be a BTCC feud building there.
Gee, Joe, I'll tell you what, Mark Fogarty's never going to get a job in the diplomatic corps, is he? He can get a fight going even if there isn't one.
I tell you, Mark, I've seen him in press conferences all over the world, and he is the man who's going to ask the awkward questions, and he always does it. He's certainly prepared to stand up and be ridiculed, but he'll stick with it, and he will put the question to those involved, and he'll stick with it until he gets the answer. Sometimes the answer he wants, not the one that he might be given.
It's no coincidence our pit lane reporter is 6'5", is it? You wouldn't ask those questions at my height. The remainder of the field, meantime, with Gabriele Tarquini, the Honda driver, in the leader, makes its way back out onto the back of the field. The safety car lights still are on. There's James Thompson now back into the pits, walking a little more briskly than he did before. That's good to see.
James, you've just got back in the doctor's car. You look okay. How do you feel?
Yeah, I'm all right. I'm just a little frustrated because, you know, that incident was totally avoidable. If we'd had tyre warmers and the front tyres were up to pressure, that would never have happened. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I was going no quicker, if anything, slightly slower than I was in the race situation. And we said something like this had happened when you don't have tyre warmers, and it has. And, you know, not just for me, the safety issue, but for the cameraman as well. I mean, thank God they're all right, but I mean, it's crazy, you know, tyre warmers on a racing car, you need it, you can't compromise safety. I'm very annoyed about it, to be honest.
So it just got away from you on cold tyres?
Yeah, cold tyres, obviously, it takes a couple of laps to get the racing pressure in the tyre, and obviously front-wheel drive car, it does everything through the front tyres. We changed front tyres at the stop, and then the front tyre just dug under the heavier load of Dingledale.
Well, it was obviously a big hit. Car looks a mess, a couple of feet shorter. How did it feel from the driver's seat?
Not very good, I can tell you that. No, it's not ideal. Obviously, very disappointed for everybody, and it's dangerous at the end of the day. But motorsport is dangerous, but it's just a matter of trying to avoid avoidable incidents like that.
So, I mean, how are you feeling? I mean, you're obviously angry, but I mean, are you shaken or just a bit stirred?
No, obviously, you know, I'm okay, and I'm really pleased that the cameramen are okay, you know. But I think there's issues that need to be resolved. All the drivers voiced concerns about the fact that we didn't have tyre warmers, and now, first race of the year, we've had a big accident due to that fact. So I hope people see sense.
Okay, thank you, James Thompson.
And I can confirm, as we look at James Thompson's car, piled up, as you can see, over the top of the Armco safety fence, that our cameramen are a little bruised and shaken, but they are okay. It must have been a terrifying moment for them to see James' car hurtling towards them like that, and they just jumped for cover in time.
Yeah, there wasn't really very much chance for them to do. They were following the action, and the point of James's car to the point of impact was probably a little more than a couple of seconds. And when you're looking through the lens of a camera and you see what's coming at you, it's almost like it's surreal. You're not believing what you're seeing until suddenly the penny drops. But fortunately, all the crew up there are fine, as you say, shaken and not too much stirring. And they'll be back again at the next events.
As we can see, the lights on the safety car are out. That means this is the last lap before the race will resume. The car in the lead is Gabriele Tarquini. He is one of two cars yet to pit. So although he leads in the Honda, he is not really going to hold that position for long because he has to pit. Second is Jason Plato in the Vauxhall. And as you said, John Watson, it looks as though he's the luckiest guy since Ringo Starr, because that's going to really play to his advantage. Having pitted early, he's in second place. Blair has yet to pit in third place. Then it's Reed in the Ford, Menu, and Ricard Rydell. There's the trio of trouble just pulling through Sterling's now. All of those Fords will be trying to punch their way back through to the front once this man in the red and white Honda, Gabriele Tarquini, pits. Plato in the red Vauxhall right behind him. There's Blair, the independent runner, in the Nissan behind them. And there we have Reed, then Menu, then Rydell. Three Fords, then a Class B runner, Mark Lemmer, and then Vincent Rademacher in the second of the Vauxhalls. The safety car is in. Tarquini, very experienced in this, backing up the field. It's a rolling start. He knows how to play this. Look, John, he's holding them up, slowing them right back. That's the cutest one. That's the cutest rolling start I've seen for ages. Gabriele Tarquini, in proper GT fashions, backs up the field, stands on the gas, and leaves them all behind. Very clever stuff.
Yeah, good stuff from and amusing as well. But Jason Plato, the man really in pole position, but he's got three Fords to deal with behind him. And Mark Blair in that Nissan, the independent Nissan, sort of trying to get out of the way of everybody, but basically just drives across the front.
Reed muscles his way down the inside of Blair, and Menu follows. That pushes Blair very wide. Poor old Blair will be up a tree if he's not very careful. Tarquini in the lead. Blair has let all those Fords go through. Nicely played, Colin. Thanks for that. Good road manners. So there's Tarquini, there's Plato, then there's Reed, then there's Menu, then there's Rydell. All of them in a row, and that start really worked for Tarquini. That was as cool as you'd like.
Well, we've got a 33-lap race, so we're on lap 22. Plato's going to have to go some to keep those three Fords behind him. 3 against 1 is not very good odds, Jason.
Worth explaining that in a rolling start, which we do after the safety car's been out, no one is allowed to pass the lead car until they pass the start-finish line. So that lead driver really has control over the whole field, and Gabriele plainly enjoyed that very, very much. Up towards Dingledale now. That's where James Thompson came to grief only a lap ago. Remember, all of these cars have got cooler tyres again because they've been running around, not at race speed. That's not ideal.
No, and interesting, the waved yellow flag up at Dingledale, so no more overtaking is allowed at that part of track during this race.
Very, very sensible round through, and there goes Gabriele Tarquini. He pulls into pit. That puts Jason Plato into the lead, and that puts Jason Plato under some very big pressure from Anthony Reed. Reed on the right-hand side, Plato on the left. Reed tucks in, Plato moves to cover down to Paddock Hill Bend, and Reed shovels him from behind. Reed helps him down the hill. Are there any questions? Get out of my way. I'll pass you or I will go through you. Now here's it. They're ganging up on him, one after the other. That's Reed on the inside, Menu on the outside. Rydell, 3 abreast. This isn't going to work. Down towards bottom bend. Be careful, boys. The paperwork will be hell if you take each other out. Menu's ducked inside Rydell. Almost got it wrong. Rydell cuts back. So Reed is still the lead forward behind Plato. Menu on the left, Rydell on the right. Rydell slips through. Very, very smooth.
Yeah, I tell you what, I wouldn't want to be in Jason Plato's shoes right now. It's like having 3 great white sharks chasing after you, not 3 Ford Mondeos. That was as tough as it gets. Reed put the bumper of his car to the back of the Vauxhall and literally shoveled Plato down Paddock Hill Bend. And well done, Jason.
Yeah, this is tougher. This isn't motor racing, it's tag team wrestling. Plato still being softened up by Reed, but any minute now it'll be Rydell having a lash and Menu in touch. Menu's been the quickest of the 3, and he is in 3rd place. So the politics in the Ford camp will be interesting to watch as this unfolds. All of those Fords are fitted. This is a race to the flag, and Jason Plato has to deal with them all. Here's Vincent Rademacher. He can maybe help out. Ivan Muller, I should say, he can maybe help out. He's right on the tail of that group of Fords. But Reed is really clearing away. Anthony was struggling a little bit this morning, but he's plenty of pace now.
Yes, he certainly does, and Plato and Reed are managing to pull out a gap. It's just under a second to 3rd place Menu, and Mike Rydell now in 3rd place, so it's all very, very difficult.
Reed is close, not close enough. Plato is driving a defensive line, but he's still hanging on comfortably so far. Reed right behind. There's Ricard Rydell, and there's been a little bit of shuffle right behind them. I don't know whether or not Alain Menu's got a problem, because he's dropped a place and a Vauxhall has pipped him. So yes. Muller has moved ahead. I don't know what, or Rademacher rather has moved ahead. I don't know what that's about. No, sun glinting on it. Beg your pardon. Is Muller, then Menu, then Rademacher right behind.
Menu looks to be in trouble. He's suddenly going backwards. Muller got past comfortably. Watch Rademacher now and see if he can do the same as the 2 remaining Vauxhalls try to some way get up amongst that sea of yellow and blue Fords.
So at the moment it's Vauxhall, Ford, Ford, Vauxhall, Ford, Vauxhall, and there goes Rademacher trying to have a look. Feints down the inside. Not a very easy place to pass Alain Menu through Westfield. It's a fast corner. Still trying to line him up, then over the top of Dingeldale. Still behind, Menu covering into Sterling. As you say, John, not the right place to pass. But now he needs to try to get a slingshot. Really in the toe as they head down the hill towards Clearways. Can he get inside here? If he gets it wrong, he'll slow his run all the way along the pit straight. No, tucks in behind, a different line from Menu. But Rademacher looks as though he can put that car anywhere he wants. Side by side, he's got him.
Yeah, Menu's in trouble. We don't know whether it's a handling problem or whether it's a mechanical problem, but he can do nothing about Rademacher. He just took the line coming out of Clearways, got alongside and over and done with. And it's amazing, in the space of the time of the 3 safety cars being out, Menu's gone from being the quickest car in the field to now being overtaken by virtually all leading Super Tourists.
Well, Jason Plato, meantime, still holding off Anthony Reed in 2nd place, and Rydell in the 2nd of the Fords in 3rd. Ivan Muller up into 4th place. That's pretty good for old Ivan, given that he's had to pit with problems. Menu is starting to get that limping look about him. He's slowing down. Now here we have our race leader, Jason Plato, in the Vauxhall. He's got his tail up, so has Anthony Reed. Really got his tail up. He's starting to clear away from Ricard Rydell. Reed was not as quick as Rydell this morning, but they are starting to move away, and Rydell has a 2nd battle on his hands with Ivan Muller.
Yeah, Muller putting the lights on just to a little bit of distraction. Well, Ricard Rydell, who's looking forward to his teammate Anthony Reed managing to move away and keep in contact with Plato. And Plato, such a good race driver, Jason Plato. He's quick, he knows how to drive a race, he's got that cunning and guile, and he will take all the pressure Anthony Reed can give him and tons more.
Looks pretty comfortable so far, down into Clearways corner again. If anything, that gap looks to be opening up a tiny little bit over Anthony Reed in the Ford. And the gap between those 2 and the next is really, really starting to show. And Rydell has had to give best to Muller. The amazing Muller has muscled his way back past again, and Muller up into 3rd place.
Only thing I can think about is that the Ford team have opted to go with one of the 2 tyre choices as a harder and a softer tyre. And if they've gone the wrong way, they just may be losing grip simply because they've made an incorrect tyre choice. That's just a guess, but it can only look something to me like that.
Well, the word up from the pit lane is that maybe Menu's got an added problem on top of that. They don't know what it is yet, but he's struggling. Maybe it could just be tyres, but either way, Rydell slipped back a little bit off race pace in race 1 and is really doing it now. Now, the question is, has Ivan Muller got enough laps left up his sleeve to really put on the pressure? He was the danger man this morning.
I think you're going to see Ivan Muller move up to the back of Anthony Reid and create a Vauxhall sandwich, as opposed to what we saw from the Fords a few laps ago, where poor Jason Plato was being attacked at every quarter.
Westfield corner, down the dip. Drop a couple of gears over Dinglesdale, still pushing hard. James Thompson's car remains stranded there, so as you say, no passing for the rest of this race there.
So the gap as they came across the line, Charlie, the last time, Reid and Muller, there was just about 2 seconds between them, but that's going to be closed down. I think they come across the line this time.
Down across the line they come. Reid still very much in touch. Pushing hard. Only 7 laps left. So Muller has really got to get his skates on, but 2.7, yeah, it's closing, Waddy. Muller in 3rd place, Rydell in 4th place, then Rademacher in 5th, and Alain Menu staggering around in 6th position. And Gabriele Tarquini, although he led a race, he really should be starting to figure in this.
Yeah, I think he actually was a loser because of those safety cars. He got the field all backed up behind him, having all those cars made their pit stops. He had to go in eventually to do it inside the pit stop window, and consequently he lost out. He probably lost a total about 25 seconds, and that's consequently put him all the way back in 7th place.
Well, here comes Muller, 3rd place in the Vauxhall. There is Plato, there is Reid in the yellow Ford, and there's Muller, and he's getting closer by the minute. Up through the shadows, just what Anthony Reid wants in his Ford, to look up in his rear vision mirror and see that stalking them again.
But just watching Muller coming through Sterling's corner, you can see the front of the car. Even he hasn't got the amount of grip he would really like. There's a little bit of understeer as he turns in. Seems to be maybe worse going into left-handers than into right-handers, and that was a key part of this race strategy here today.
But if anyone can deal with a car with that grip, it's Muller. More than capable of wringing the neck of the car. Doesn't really mind whether or not the car's got grip. Would prefer it, but can handle it. And I think Jason Plato looks to be just easing out a tiny bit over Reid, and that is bad news for that Ford driver, because Muller is getting closer all the time.
Yes, he took about 2.5 tenths out of Anthony Reid in the last lap, but of course it's a question of running out of laps. We've got 6 now to go, and the mathematics don't really bear up. So I think Ivan Muller is going to have to find a way to close that gap more quickly.
Well, here's the view back from Anthony Reid, and there is Muller. That's as good as the gap's going to get, because Anthony Reid has just driven up over the hill, and then the hill slows up Muller for a second. But as we get to our next braking zone after we've gone down the hill, there's Anthony at work at the wheel. When he slows down, here's the view the other way, the quarry and the pursuer. That's Westfield's corner, the double apex. There's the second part of the corner, down the dip. Catching's going to be one thing, passing another.
It will be, but it's going to be a cracking final lap or so if they get Muller onto the boot of Anthony Reid. Suddenly his attention will not be looking forward, it will be all looking rearward.
And all of this, of course, plays wonderfully into the hands of Jason Plato. All he needs is for Anthony to be distracted so that Jason can clear off into the distance.
And I think you have to say well done to the Vauxhall team if they can keep the situation as it is. Whether Jason had a problem when he came in very early or not, but it certainly clearly and somewhat maybe unexpectedly has worked to his advantage. And once in the front, he's not going to give it up. He's a tough, tough racer.
Yeah, and he can taste it. Look, it's getting closer. He definitely is going to catch Anthony Reid at this rate. And these cars, it's worth mentioning, they feel less and less happy to drive, don't they? As the laps unfold, the grip level feels low, the brake pedal gets longer.
And they've been out a long time because of the 3 safety car situations. Fuel is going to be an issue also. So that's something that everybody in the pit lane will be mindful of, and it just may well be that somebody gets a pit signal saying just ease a little bit to conserve fuel.
Rickard Rydell in the 4th car in line there, the 2nd of the Ford, still in touch. There's Muller in 3rd. It is theoretically possible. In fact, it's It's going to happen any time now. One more lap and he will be right on the boot lid. There are enough laps in hand. Ivan Muller is full of praise for this car, loves the way it feels. Talked to him before the race, said, what have you changed on the car? And he just said, everything.
Well, one of the things that has been changed is that Laurent Aiello's engineer from last year at Nissan is working for Ivan Muller, and there is considerable knowledge that has come from Nissan into the Vauxhall team, and working in particular with Ivan Muller, so good combination for the championship this year.
That lap board we just saw for Jason Plato, that's a stressful old thing, isn't it? He'll look up and the lap board says lap 4 laps to go, and he thinks to himself, oh, another 4 laps of holding this off.
But he's managed to hold it consistently around a second and a half. Reed really hasn't got any more to give, and he's now having to worry about Muller coming up behind him. So I think for Jason Plato this looks reasonably secure and comfortable. At least he can breathe a little bit more easily.
Ricard Rydell is starting to slip back. He'll be wanting to work on the race setup of this car after this weekend is done, because plainly he's ultra quick. Alain Menu is still circulating, but way off the pace now. Ricard Rydell is ultra quick, but he just can't hold it in the race distance. It's either the way he drives the car, because he is the Ford new boy.
I think it'll take a few races, but you know, Ricard is such a professional race driver. He doesn't get flustered. He doesn't try and do it all in the first meeting of the year. He knows this championship is won over 12 rounds, 24 races, and an awful lot of points to be won. And equally, a lot can be lost from maybe trying to do it all too quickly, too soon.
Derek Warwick, a former campaigner, now looking after his Vauxhall Chargers, and he'll be extremely excited with only a couple of laps to go. One of the principals of the Triple 8 team which runs the Vauxhalls. And there's his principal concern at the moment, Jason Plato, who is still in the lead as the laps count down. Anthony Reid still in touch with him. Ivan Muller, our Class B cars. Those two Hondas are absolutely nose to tail as they have been all race long. James Kay is in the Honda Accord, that's the 2-litre car, and he's in the lead, and Mark Lemmer right behind him in the Honda Integra R. And it's interesting that that road car version, if you like, the Accord, which is not the sporty one, is actually slightly the quicker of the two.
Yeah, the Integra R is coming to the end of its development program. The Accord is just beginning, so they're very evenly matched. But really what we're looking at here is, I would suggest, the future of touring car racing in this country. Cars very much more closely associated with the production car that we can go and buy in a factory showroom.
Yes, that Honda Accord looks very different from any of the works Honda Accords.
And of course race leaders are just coming up to lap these two cars in Class B who are battling for their own championship.
Yep, they're working very hard. They are in a race. They are nose to tail, the Class B cars. And Jason Plato there just moving up onto the back of the first of them. Mark Lemmer's seen him. Now Jason splits the pair of them, moves to the outside of James Kay. Nicely done, Jason, and nicely done. And here we go, Anthony Reid now having a look down the inside. Mark Lemmer's just given him room, not quite enough. A bit of a hip and shoulder from Anthony Reid on the way past, and spits Mark Lemmer off into the distance. Thanks very much. Welcome to touring cars.
And look at that. Reid had to do that because he's now got Muller right on the bumper of his car.
Yep, can't be helped. As you say, Waddy, they are in a race of their own. They have to compete. But boy, oh boy, that was a focusing moment for Mark Lemmer going down Paddock Hill Bend really quickly. And now, as you can see, just what Anthony Reid did not want, because of that coming together and that weaving around those two cars, he's got Ivan Muller to deal with.
And it's going to be a close. This is on lap 32 or 33. So if Muller's got anything left, he's going to have to show it very shortly. But Reid looks to be sufficiently comfortable. But the Vauxhall is clearly the quicker of the two cars. Just Muller hasn't got the chance to show it.
Late afternoon sun making life. Then Menu, then Rademacher.
Be in trouble. He's suddenly going backwards. Muller got past comfortably. Watch Rademacher now and see if he can do the same as the two remaining Vauxhalls try to some way get up amongst that sea of yellow and blue Fords.
So at the moment it's Vauxhall, Ford, Vauxhall, Ford, Vauxhall, and there goes Rademacher trying to have a look. Feints down the inside. Not a very easy place to pass Alain Menu through Westfield. It's a fast corner. Still trying to line him up, then over the top of Dinkeldale. Still behind, Menu covering into Sterling. As you say, John, not the right place to pass, but now he needs to try to get a slingshot really in the toe as they head down the hill towards Clearways. Can he get inside here? If he gets it wrong, he'll slow his run all the way along the pit straight. No, tucks in behind, a different line from Menu. But Rademacher looks as though he can put that car anywhere he wants, side by side. He's got him.
Yeah, Menu's in trouble. We don't know whether it's a handling problem or whether it's a mechanical problem, but he can do nothing about Rademacher. He just took the line coming out of Clearways, got alongside and over and done with. And it's amazing, in the space of the time of the 3 safety cars being out, Menu's gone from being the quickest car in the field to now being overtaken by virtually all leading Super Tourists.
Well, Jason Plato, meantime, still holding up Anthony Reid in second place, and Rydell in the second of the Fords in third. Ivan Muller up into fourth place. That's pretty good for old Ivan, given that he's had to pit with problems. Menu is starting to get that limping look about him. He's slowing down. Now here we have our race leader, Jason Plato, in the Vauxhall. He's got his tail up, so has Anthony Reid. Really got his tail up. He's starting to clear away from Rickard Rydell. Reid was not as quick as Rydell this morning, but they are starting to move away, and Rydell has a second battle on his hands with Ivan Muller.
Yeah, Muller putting the lights on just to a little bit of distraction. Well, Rickard Rydell, who's looking forward to his teammate Anthony Reid managing to move away and keep in contact with Plato. And Plato, such a good race driver, Jason Plato. He's quick, he knows how to drive a race, he's got that cunning and guile, and he will take all the pressure Anthony Reid can give him and tons more.
Looks pretty comfortable so far, down into Clearways corner again. If anything, that gap looks to be opening up a tiny little bit over Anthony Reid in the Ford. And the gap between those two and the next is really, really starting to show. And Rydell has had to give best to Muller. The amazing Muller has muscled his way back past again, and Muller up into third place.
Only thing I can think about is that the Ford team have opted to go with one of the 2 tyre choices as a harder and a softer tyre. And if they've gone the wrong way, they just may be losing grip simply because they've made an incorrect tyre choice. That's just a guess, but it can only look something to me like that.
Well, the word up from the pit lane is that maybe Menu's got an added problem on top of that. They don't know what it is yet, but he's struggling. Maybe it could just be tyres, but either way, Rydell slipped back a little bit off race pace in race 1 and is really doing it now. Now, the question is, has Ivan Muller got enough laps left up his sleeve to really put on the pressure? He was the danger man this morning.
I think you're going to see Ivan Muller move up to the back of Anthony Reid and create a Vauxhall sandwich, as opposed to what we saw from the Fords a few laps ago, where poor Jason Plato was being attacked at every quarter.
Westfield corner, down the dip. Drop a couple of gears over Dinglesdale, still pushing hard. James Thompson's car remains stranded there, so as you say, no passing for the rest of this race yet.
So the gap as they came across the line, Charlie, the last time, Reid and Muller, there was just about 2 seconds between them, but that's going to be closed down. I think they come across the line this time.
Down across the line they come. Reid still very much in touch. Pushing hard. Only 7 laps left. And Muller has really got to get his skates on, but 2.7, yeah, it's closing, Waddy. Muller in third place, Rydell in fourth place, then Rademacher in fifth, and Alain Menu staggering around in sixth position. And Gabriele Tarquini, although he led a race, he really should be starting to figure in this.
Yeah, I think he actually was a loser because of those safety cars. He got the field all backed up behind him, having all those cars made their pit stops. He had to go in eventually to do it inside the pit stop window, and consequently he lost out. He probably lost a total about 25 seconds, and that's consequently put him all the way back in 7th place.
Well, here comes Muller, third place in the Vauxhall. There is Plato, there is Reid in the yellow Ford, and there's Muller, and he's getting closer by the minute. Up through the shadows, just what Anthony Reid wants in his Ford, to look up in his rear vision mirror and see that stalking them again.
But just watching Muller coming through Sterling's corner, you can see the front of the car. Even he hasn't got the amount of grip he would really like. There's a little bit of understeer as he turns in. Seems to be maybe worse going into left-handers than into right-handers, and that was a key part of this race strategy here today.
But if anyone can deal with a car with that grip, it's Muller. More than capable of wringing the neck of the car. Doesn't really mind whether or not the car's got grip. would prefer it, but can handle it. And I think Jason Plato looks to be just easing out a tiny bit over Reed, and that is bad news for that Ford driver because Muller is getting closer all the time.
Yes, he took about 2.5 tenths out of Anthony Reed in the last lap, but of course it's a question of running out of laps. We've got 6 now to go, and the mathematics don't really bear up. So I think Ivan Muller is going to have to find a way to close that gap more quickly.
Well, here's the view back from Anthony Reed, and there is Muller. That's as good as the gap's going to get because Anthony Reed has just driven up over the hill, and then the hill slows up Muller for a second. But as we get to our next braking zone after we've gone down the hill, there's Anthony at work at the wheel. When he slows down, here's the view the other way, the quarry and the pursuer. That's Westfield's corner, the double apex. There's the second part of the corner, down the dip. Catching is going to be one thing, passing another.
It will be, but it's going to be a cracking final lap or so if they get Muller onto the boot of Anthony Reed. Suddenly his attention will not be looking forward, it will be all looking rearward.
And all of this, of course, plays wonderfully into the hands of Jason Plato. All he needs is for Anthony to be distracted so that Jason can clear off into the distance.
I think you have to say well done to the Vauxhall team if they can keep the situation as it is. Whether Jason had a problem when he came in very early or not, but it certainly clearly and somewhat maybe unexpectedly has worked to his advantage. And once in the front, he's not going to give it up. He's a tough, tough racer.
Yeah, and he can taste it. Look, it's getting closer. He definitely is going to catch Anthony Reed at this rate. And these cars, it's worth mentioning, they feel less and less happy to drive, don't they? As the laps unfold, the grip level feels low, the brake pedal gets longer.
And they've been out a long time because of the 3 safety car situations. Fuel is going to be an issue also. So that's something that everybody in the pit lane will be mindful of, and it just may well be that somebody gets a pit signal saying just ease a little bit to conserve fuel.
Rickard Rydell in the 4th car in line there, the 2nd of the Ford, still in touch. There's Muller in 3rd. It is theoretically possible. In fact, it's going to happen any time now. One more lap and he will be right on the boot lid. There are enough laps in hand. Ivan Muller is full of praise for this car, loves the way it feels. Talked to him before the race, said, what have you changed on the car? And he just said, everything.
Well, one of the things that has been changed is that Laurent Aiello's engineer from last year at Nissan is working for Ivan Muller, and there is considerable knowledge that has come from Nissan into the Vauxhall team, and working in particular with Ivan Muller, so good combination for the championship this year.
That lap board we just saw for Jason Plato, that's a stressful old thing, isn't it? He'll look up and the lap board says lap 4 laps to go, and he thinks to himself, oh, another 4 laps of holding this off.
But he's managed to hold it consistently around 1.5 seconds. Reed really hasn't got any more to give, and he's now having to worry about Muller coming up behind him. So I think for Jason Plato this looks reasonably secure and comfortable. At least he can breathe a little bit more easily.
Rickard Rydell is starting to slip back. He'll be wanting to work on the race setup of this car after this weekend is done, because plainly he's ultra quick. Alain Menu is still circulating, but way off the pace now. Rickard Rydell is ultra quick, but he just can't hold it in the race distance. It's either the way he drives the car, because he is the Ford new boy.
I think it'll take a few races, but you know, Rickard is such a professional race driver. He doesn't get flustered. He doesn't try and do it all in the first meeting of the year. He knows this championship is won over 12 rounds, 24 races, and an awful lot of points to be won. And equally, a lot can be lost from maybe trying to do it all too quickly, too soon.
Derek Warwick, a former campaigner, now looking after his Vauxhall Chargers, and he'll be extremely excited with only a couple of laps to go. One of the principals of the 888 team which runs the Vauxhalls. And there's his principal concern at the moment, Jason Plato, who is still in the lead as the laps count down. Anthony Reed still in touch with him. Ivan Muller, our Class B cars. Those 2 Hondas are absolutely nose to tail as they have been all race long. James Kay is in the Honda Accord, that's the 2-litre car, and he's in the lead, and Mark Lemmer right behind him in the Honda Integra R. interesting that that road car version, if you like, the Accord, which is not the sporty one, is actually slightly the quicker of the two.
Yeah, the Integra R is coming to the end of its development program. The Accord is just beginning, so they're very evenly matched. But really what we're looking at here is, I would suggest, the future of touring car racing in this country. Cars very much more closely associated with the production car that we can go and buy in a factory showroom.
Yes, that Honda Accord looks very, very, very different from any of the works Honda Accords.
And of course race leaders are just coming up to lap these two cars in Class B. They're battling for their own championship.
Yep, they're working very hard. They are in a race. They are nose to tail, the Class B cars. And Jason Plater there just moving up onto the back of the first of them. Mark Lemmer's seen him. Now Jason splits the pair of them, moves to the outside of James Kay. Nicely done, Jason, and nicely done. And here we go, Anthony Reid now having a look down the inside. Mark Lemmer's just given him room, not quite enough. A bit of a hip and shoulder from Anthony Reid on the way past. And spits Mark Lemmer off into the distance. Thanks very much. Welcome to Touring Cars.
And look at that. Reid had to do that because he's now got Muller right on the bumper of his car.
Yep, can't be helped. As you say, Waddy, they are in a race of their own. They have to compete. But boy, oh boy, that was a focusing moment for Mark Lemmert going down Paddock Hill Bend really, really quickly. And now, as you can see, just what Anthony Reid did not want. Because of that coming together and that weaving around those two cars, he's got a Van Muller to deal with.
And it's going to be a close. This is on lap 32 or 33. So if Muller's got anything left, he's going to have to show it very, very shortly. But Reid looks to be sufficiently comfortable. But the Vauxhall is clearly the quicker of the two cars. Just Muller hasn't got the chance to show it.
Late afternoon sun making life a little difficult for those drivers as they get up towards Westfield. I think we've stopped a bug right on the middle of our camera lens, which is mounted on the top of Van Muller's car, and Muller is trying to mount his own car onto the top of Anthony Reid's car. Reid in the yellow and blue Ford in second place. Muller on a tow bar fitting in third place in the second of the Vauxhalls. Getting into last lap, desperate stuff.
It's going to happen. It's got to happen here. And the favourite place for me is going to be into Paddock, but I don't think Muller is close enough, and Reid will defend as he's never defended all year.
Yeah, it'd be like trying to prise a limpet off a rock, trying to get Neil out into second place now, but Muller had a look down there. We saw him last year pull off the pass of the year into Paddock Hill Bend there, and he tried to repeat it. This is the last lap coming up into Druids. Fakes to the inside. That doesn't disturb Anthony Reid. Reid's been around long enough to realise he won't fall for that. Reid runs wider. Muller looks down the inside, can't capitalise there. This is no point, bottom bend, can't get past there. Running out of options.
Yeah, coming into Surtees is the other option. It's difficult. You can take a lunge down the inside.
He's trying to do it, Waddy. He's got a nose down the inside, wasn't enough. And doing that desperate stuff, it's not going to help his run onto the back straight.
No, it's not really. There's little chance now. Hawthorne's is far too quick. Westfield, very tricky to try and get close enough. And all he can do is maybe get a blinder out of Sterling's and try and just drive down the inside to Reid into clearways.
Anthony Reid will be counting this last lap down. A few more corners to go. This is Westfield. You're right, far too quick there. Very difficult. And there are waved yellows at the next corner, which is Dingledell, so they can't pass there. That really was his last sensible option, wasn't it? That lunge into Surtees was it. Here's Sterling, just too far away.
Yeah, so he might have a pop down into clearways, but it's very unlikely he'll get away with it.
Just can't get in touch. Reaching out, just can't do it. Jason Plato cruising around clearways. That's the last corner. He gets coasted home from here. It's all downhill. Anthony Reid holding him off. And he hit the grass. Unbelievable. Moved the car over to say hello to the pit guys and celebrate, and almost lost it.
Well, we've seen a lot of things here today, but that would have been the one that would have taken the prize if Plato had lost, as he tried to celebrate with the team this victory. A great victory for Plato and Vauxhall here in the feature race this afternoon.
Nearly put his wheels on the grass, nearly snatched defeat from the jaws of victory. That was a terrifying moment for Plato. Well driven, nice win. Jason Plato hangs on. An early pit stop really paid dividends for him. There's the boy. You can see the smile through the helmet from here. He seems just modestly happy with that.
I should think so. And look at that. There's a man who's happy with his work. And well done, Jason. Well thought out race, good strategy, you did the business, and that's how you win races.
Yeah, a good team strategy as well, not just well driven, but the team obviously played a part in that. There is part of that team, Derek Warwick, who we just mentioned, Roland Day and the rest of the 888 guys. The first and the third, Ivan Muller to be congratulated on that drive, bringing his Vauxhall in third place. Now here's another look at this. There he goes, touches the grass to lurch over and say, hi guys, haven't I done well?
I tell you what, the lurch must have had Derek Warwick jumping about 6 feet back. I mean, he thought the car was going to come and join him in the pit lane. That was something, Jason, well, bit of a showman and a showboater at times. That certainly caught everybody's attention.
Is there any question? Yeah, we're pleased you're pleased, Jason, but please just keep your car, please, on the track until it's over. So Jason Plato for Vauxhall, early pit stopper and a winner. Anthony Reid keeps his cool and his second place. Well done for Anthony Reid. Got a bit to prove this year.
He's got an awful lot to prove, and I think that's the best way to do it. All the talking in the workshops, back with management, is totally eclipsed by a performance like that this afternoon.
Yeah, he's been around, quick driver, made the most of his opportunities today. Didn't just inherit it, fought his way up there, found himself at the end of all of the pit stops. All the pit stops for Ford were in the 7-second break, but at the end of them all, he did find himself in the lead of that trio. So driven to second place, not inherited. Bit of bad luck for Alain Menu. He was our pole sitter, our race one winner, but obviously some sort of a problem with the car has seen him stagger across the line in 7th position.
And certainly good for the championship, not to have one driver, one manufacturer dominating. Derek Warwick strides up to say well done to Jason, and trying very hard not to look happy about it, I would say.
Yep, old poker face himself. Car just going up now on the corner weight scales. They roll it up onto 4 scales under the wheels, weigh the car, make sure it's all legal, roll it off again. The car has to start again after they've weighed it, of course. If it stalls now, they've got all sorts of problems. Plato moving into the pits. Anthony Reid second, Muller third, as we mentioned. Don't forget Ricard Rydell drove a stormer, just ran out of pace near the back end of the race to finish in 4th position. Vincent Rademacher in the second of the Vauxhalls will be pretty pleased. In the third of the Vauxhalls will be pleased with himself. 5th position. It's a better run than he had this morning.
Well, looking at the light on the face of Jason Plato. First race in a new team, always nice to get away with a victory early in the season. You can't get much earlier than this.
Well, he must have been doing some training because he doesn't even look too hot. Mark Fogarty trying to muscle his way in to have a word with our race winner, but they're busy kissing each other.
Standing by. Jason Plato. Well, we were talking before the start of this race, as our cameraman nearly falls over there, that pit stop tactics could be crucial in this race, and that early stop seemed to do it for you.
Yeah, we decided, bearing where we were on the grid, an early stop was going to be good. We knew that the car was very strong in a race run. I didn't want to get held up by traffic, so the plan was, in case it was a safety car, but more so in case it was, you know, I couldn't get past the guys in front, so that way I could get a gap and put some times in. Yeah, I mean, we worked perfectly. It's a nice way to come back after a poor Friday and Saturday.
Well, of course, it wasn't just canny thinking in the pit lane for you. The car's obviously got the speed. You're a title contender.
Most certainly, Vauxhall have got the speed this year. We just need to improve the car in qualifying, but the race trim is excellent, and you know, I'm just one small part of the equation. You know, a lot of effort and thanks must go to the guys back at base who've done a great job, not just with the Vauxhall Vectra, but also everyone at Speeds has done a good job on the engine. But you know, there's more to come. This is just the beginning.
Okay, good win, Jason. We'll just have a quick word. We'll move over here to Derek Warwick. Derek, former Formula One driver, former touring car driver, and now team owner. This is a great way to start the year.
Well, you know, we've done a lot of work this winter, changed a lot of things. We're really happy with the team. We had a few problems there at the start of the race, but the boys did a good job. Jason drove a fantastic race. We had good strategy. And Ivan seems he had to have a stop there to mend a broken splitter. They did a good job. I'm really pleased.
You've got a fast car. You can win this title, can't you?
I think so. You know, we've got a long way to go, but it's a good start. We've got a lot of points in the bag. And from here we can go on and maybe have a good season. We need it.
Thanks, Derek. A very happy Derek Warwick.
So what an eventful afternoon. A huge crash for James Thompson, but he's fine. A crash for Morrison as well, and the Peugeot. Christensen and Neal knocking themselves out early. But Jason Plato and the Vauxhall coming out the winner. Anthony Reid in second place, and Ivan Muller in third.